We're going to call the meeting to order, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Ms. Stoller. Here. Mr. Taylor.
Here.
And Ms. Vukovic.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the previous minutes from May 4th? If so, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
All right.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seeing that there's not any minor plats, we'll move on to the public hearing. We have PP-22-8 Geist Forest replat, Bree King.
Bree King, Planning and Zoning. So this property is located generally near 10651 Florida, which is generally northeast of Geist Ridge and Florida Road. There are 5 lots in this primary plat today, and they have currently existed as meets and bounds parcels. So this plat is to establish the density that is allowed, as well as clean up the property lines by combining some of the small and developable parcels with the larger parcels. Today, it would be legal to build homes on these properties, but the City of Fishers requires platting process to establish the lots as subdivision lots instead of meets and bounds. This primary plat is only including the properties highlighted in purple. Oops. This area is currently zoned R2, and these lots have a shared drive along the southern border. This primary plat was discussed in the April TAC meeting, and at this time, all planning and engineering comments have been addressed. All of these lots meet the R2 requirements of the Fishers Unified Development Ordinance, and access will be provided by a shared drive that is in a recorded ingress, egress, and utility easement. Currently, there are no proposed changes to the private drive at this time, and in the future, the drive will be maintained by the HOA. There are no proposed pedestrian systems or public roads, and this property will be annexing into the City of Fishers. There are no proposed environmental or resiliency features, and no open space is proposed or required in this instance. Here you can see very clearly the ingress-egress easement to allow access to all proposed lots. Here you can see the location of the floodplain is on the northern end of the majority of these parcels. The developers have confirmed that they will not be building in the floodplain. We did receive a few public comments on this primary plat. So a resident of Lakeview, which is highlighted with that bubble in the image, had concerns of the loss of biodiversity, soil erosion, flooding, and was hoping for some kind of tree replacement program. So staff provided these comments to the petitioner, and they will be addressing these in their presentation as well. Staff also wishes to explain that single-family residential is not a dense proposal, so there will not be a large change to the concerns. Our second public comment included concerns such as the property line conflicts on the north edge of the lot to the northeast, north access easement, soil erosion and flooding, as well as construction access. So petitioner will be addressing the boundary line conflict, and a survey will also be required for the secondary plat process, which will address these boundary line issues as well. All access easements shown on the primary plat are previously recorded, and the petitioner will be addressing these concerns. We did ask our engineering department to take a look at the plat and provide comments after receiving this comment. All new development will need to be compliant with all applicable ordinances and building codes. However, it is important to note that until development is proposed, there cannot be a full review. Detention standards are triggered when a project is over an acre in size. A single-family home is not required to have detention. In this case, the drainage review will fall to Hamilton County. Additionally, these lots are on average 5 acres, which will be able to accommodate that runoff on site. Lots 1 through 3 drain to a ravine, and that takes the water west through a culvert under Florida Road before entering Fall Creek. These 3 homes would not have a direct impact on the existing homes on the south side of Luxhaven. And then lots 5 through 6 also have a ravine before entering Fall Creek. So based on the shared driveway location and topography, all buildable areas are out of the floodplain, and the developer has confirmed that they will not be putting their homes in the floodplain. The developer also confirmed that the construction entrance will be off of Florida Road, and so they will not be using the access easement to the north. This plat is in line with the objectives of the Fishers Unified Development Ordinance, and the parcels are zoned R2 and align with the future land use plan of estate residential. The future development on the new lots will need to meet the intention and standards of the UDO, and staff does recommend approval of PP 22-8 as it meets all local and state requirements, and as it meets all state and local requirements, the committee is required to approve that. I will now pull up the petitioner's presentation.
Afternoon, my name is Dee Baxter. I represent Y Engineers and our client. I wanted to start out with the first question that was in mind regarding our survey. Let's see if I can't get this to zoom in a little more. I know there was a question on the location of a monument that someone had mentioned. That monument could not fit any of the surveys that we had on file. This survey was done by Y Engineers, if I recall right, 2 years ago. So we did find in the corner, and I can't quite point with this, can I? Oh, there I can. We did find a monument in this corner that met pretty close to what we had calculated from surveys done by Alexander and Miller surveys. We also had some other Holloway monuments that were found, some others that did not have any identification on them. But with that monument in relation to the monument we found at the break within the plat and the other existing monuments we found that that line is where we have it located based on our retracement. Everything seemed to hit fairly close. I probably can't see it very well, and I'm not sure I can zoom in anymore, but we had a difference in this segment here of basically 1 foot difference. So that pretty well confirms what we had found when we had done the survey. So I just want to at least get that addressed. The easement that was in question that is here and up this direction, that easement is in benefit of the Tassos Toy LLC property, which is not part of this plat. So they have that access, so it will not be utilized for any construction that is being done to build the homes. Secondly, you will see in the plat, there's a difference in the lot line. This is the existing parcel line. The plat shows a different line. That line was adjusted to create a more usable, buildable spot on the highest part of the ground to keep them from going too far back. into the valley. So that is what I want to show on that. Next is, of course, the plat that you have already kind of seen. Again, this parcel here on the far right side is an existing parcel that has staying. That is not going to be part of this plat. And our easement is down along this south side, like Bree had mentioned. It's a 110-foot ingress-egress easement that's shared by all. And the only work that I know of that our client is producing is possible work on the entry down here where it meets Florida Road to make a nicer entry into the area rather than what it is currently. That's the only improvement they plan on that. Let's see, next would be, again, the last parcels, and you can tell this line is now changed to give more area in the higher ground to build a usable lot. So that is where that line was adjusted. Again, we are looking at, or the client is looking at building these homes, and they are basically, from what I understand, looking at demolishing trees just enough to build the roads, or driveways, I should say, and the building pads. I don't foresee, from what I understand, anything more than that. And that is, summarizes basically what their plan is. It's minimal disturbance is what their plan is. There is also lot 1 and 2. Those parcels have already been sold, which is what triggered this petition for the plat, is that they wanted to build a lot, build a building, a house, and they were denied because they needed to be platted. So the current owners, plural in that, are wanting to do this so that they can now build a home on the lots and parcels that they purchased. Any questions?
We'll open it up for public hearing when you're finished.
Okay.
So are there any other questions?
At this point, there's not much more. I mean, as far as environmental, I think that was already taken care of, by Bree and her comments. I think other than that, I've pretty much addressed, or Bree has addressed, all the other comments, unless I have missed one, and please let me know if I did.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go ahead and open it up for public comment, public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to come up and make a public comment? If so, please state your name and address. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Vasily Makris.
Come to the podium so that we can have the microphone, please.
My name is Vasily Makris. I'm a resident of Fisher since 1992. Raised 4 daughters here who are now wonderful adults, and I've seen this place change quite a bit, as you can imagine. I'm the original developer of this property, so I have a lot of love for it, and I just want to make a few comments, if I may. First, I'd like to, if I can, what does a blinking red light mean? Oh, it turned. Okay, I thought it would be useful to spend 10 seconds or so for people for everyone who's not familiar with the property, and none of Mrs. Lukovich is very familiar, just to see what this property is about. And I have a very short video. So this is a fast motion video through the property. Densely wooded, gorgeous, maintained like it should have been for the last 20 years by me personally, until I lost the property some time ago. And I think it's worth to note that, excuse me. It's nice to see that there's forward movement, and I think that that's inevitable as growth has surrounded the property. But there's several concerns that I have personally, and I think some people in the neighborhood do as well. In the TAC meeting, there was some concerns brought up by the staff, which I thought were very reasonable. One was, what about the engineering of the shared driveway? The driveway is 14 feet wide, and it has hairpin curves and in some places zero visibility. When I was developing the property, I dealt with Mr. Bucher, with my attorney, who made it clear to me that I had to have sidewalks in the property 20 years ago. And after a lot of conversations and convincing, he agreed to let me slide, as he said, because I was the only person that was in the property and was planning on being there for the foreseeable future. I don't see how 20 years later we can have a 14-foot driveway with 6 structures on the property with presumably 2 or 3 cars per house that don't fit to pass each other. And in addition to that, the danger to pedestrians is significant. Now that the property is no longer gated, I have to go 5 miles an hour around the curves because I invariably will find a pedestrian who gets startled and jumps out of the way. It's a trap. Somebody's going to have a problem with that down the road if the sidewalk situation is not addressed. The other issue is we like large bonfires, as Ms. Vukovic knows, and we had a big bonfire a few years back, and the fire department showed up because a neighbor called. It took them an hour to get out because there's absolutely no place for the fire truck to turn around. What about a dump truck? Is there going to be trash pickup? How are you going to cross a dump truck and a passenger car on that driveway, and a pedestrian possibly? Both sides of the driveway are riprap in a large section of the road, and there's no place for anybody to get off. So I believe that requires maybe a little bit more study and a little bit more attention. Tree conservation. In the covenants and restrictions, which they have adopted as a subdivision, there is some restrictions about cutting trees, and I find it interesting that they're not willing to commit to the same restriction in public when they're being platted. And I think that's something that I believe needs to be addressed, because they don't find properties like this every day, that with mature trees like that. The other issue is there's no emergency exit. There's several occasions over the years when I have tried to exit the property, and I had a tree on the driveway, and there's no way to get out. It's a 14-foot driveway. There's no way to get off of it, to go around it, and I believe that some provision needs to be made for emergency exit for this property. The engineer where he addressed the.
I am going to have to ask you, I'll give you another minute to discuss your comments.
Okay. The biggest concern is the erosion that could occur from the building of new homes and the possible expansion of the pads out into the ravines. This property is already accepting all the drainage from the south end subdivision that's just south of it, And although the water does drain in the creek, when the creek floods, it's a huge concern for the residents that live in the floodplains. And I can't imagine that just dumping all this water down there is not going to make a difference for the floodplain. And that's all my
Thank you very
comments.
much. Is there anyone else that would have a public comment? Yeah. Please come up, state your name and address, and then we'll give you a 3-minute time limit.
Okay. My name is Shelley Hall. I live at 15486 Martha Street. I'm a Luxhaven resident. I've lived there for a little over 25 years. My main concern is that there is some attention given to floodwater. And I believe I heard somebody say something at the beginning about that, but I just wanted to voice my concern that when they start covering all that dirt with concrete and driveways and houses and garages, that's also land that's now no longer absorbing that water. And I have seen so many times over the years of new developments coming in, and every time they do, our floodwaters get higher and higher and higher. So I just wanted to make that comment. Also, my second comment is that as a resident, I feel concerned about anything that's happening in my neighborhood. And I was very upset that this hearing was held at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when most people are at work. I had to take time off work to come here to find out what this was about. And I know in the letter it gave it a web address. I tried to get onto the web address, it wouldn't load. I tried to leave a comment, it wouldn't let me. So that's why I'm here. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to make a comment? If no, I'll close the public hearing. And the petitioner or Bree, would you have some responses to some of the comments that were made? I believe that your packet discussed a little bit of it in your presentation, but if you want to maybe reiterate specifics.
Yes, so once again, these parcels that are proposed meet all requirements of the R2 zoning district. So while the committee is required legally to approve this plat, we do thank you for your public comments and have taken those into account. So like I said earlier, we did have our engineering team take a look at the site, and they do not believe that the development out of the floodplain will cause any amount of concern for the existing residents. The main reason for that is these parcels are so large. So the proposed home, proposed hardscape will have most of that ravine on the northern edge to take in that water.
The only thing I'll add, is that Bree did mention that this is R2 is our standard zoning, and when those go through residential review, the maximum amount of impervious allowed per the Unified Development Ordinance is 35%. So we anticipate these to be quite less than that maximum amount of impervious surface.
There were a couple comments made on the shared driveway itself. So when this went through the TAC process, was the fire department able to review that shared driveway for appropriate emergency access?
There was, our fire reviewer did not provide any comments. He did not see any issues at that time.
Okay. And with the comment on the sidewalk, I guess I just want to make I want to distinguish between our requirements for a local road versus a shared driveway. So I'm not sure, I can't speak to what the requirements were at the time that you had mentioned back when you had first acquired the property, but we do not require sidewalks along shared driveways. We would only require those along what we consider as local roads. And so in this case, it is a shared driveway between all of these lots.
Yeah, and to expand on that, it is a private shared drive, not a local road, because it is gated, 2, it is narrow, and doesn't meet the standards for us. And we wouldn't require that in this situation, as well as just due to it being replat. So
it will be gated?
And then I also, the comment on the tree conservation area, because I have personally been out to this property several times, and I will say it's one of probably the most beautiful properties we have in the city of Fishers. And so I think the appeal of it is the amount of trees that are on this property and the ravine that exists. And so I agree that that's an important feature that should be preserved. However, from a policy standpoint, when we have tree conservation easements on private property, when they're not common area, they are extremely hard to enforce. It's hard to enforce on personal property what the existing tree coverage is on there. And so I am hesitant to make that a requirement, one, because it's not required by the UDO, but also it's just not really enforceable from our standpoint. But I would like if the petitioner can confirm kind of the intent of what these homes are going to look like, how much trees are planned to be preserved. I think that would be helpful for us to just understand what the plans are for each one of these residential lots as it relates to tree coverage.
If you can go up to the podium and state your name. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Little hip malfunction. Jeff Cusick, lived in Fisher since '82, 11088 Preservation Point. I own a real estate company called Engel & Bulkers. And this property is going to be designed very similar to across the street at Valleys of Geist. So the preservation of the trees is the utmost importance. That's what's drawing everybody to it. We have sold lot 1, 2, and 6, and working on people that like lot 3 and lot 5. So this is going to be a gated community, much like, and you know, with that private road and everything, we've got Cedar Stone over there off of 114th Street, which is a single in out. They got trees on both sides. It's hard to pass, but you've got limited houses on both of them. So it's going to be structured just like that. Combination of what you have down off of Cedar Stone, where you come down to the T, you turn right or left, and you've got all the trees preserved and the houses in the back. This is going to be much like Valleys of Geist, where you come in, they've got their parcels, they go down to the ravines, they're not building in the ravines, they're building on the high end, on the high ground there, and that's what it's set up to do. So, you know, we're going to maintain as much as we can of that. Of course, trees are going to have to come down for driveways and for the structures and building pads that there is, but that's primarily what it's going to be. So it is one of the last custom home sites and developments in the area that are multi-acre. So we want to maintain that, and that's what the common goal is, and that's why the people that have purchased in there are purchasing it, because they want to help maintain it too. So everybody wants a wooded lot until the fall, when they have to do their leaves. This one's got the ravine. They can throw them down there.
Thank you.
So, any other questions? Is that it?
Are there any more questions from the committee?
No, I think for, I would make a recommendation that we approve, but I would like to add the condition that we ensure that our fire department has reviewed this for appropriate access. I know this went through TAC, but just because they didn't have comments, I would like them to, I'd like to approve this on the condition that we verify that all fire code and fire access has been met.
Do I have a second?
I will second along with those amendments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to any old business or new business. Seeing none? Okay. Staff communications? No,
We just
you
have one
guys?
that is to note that the July 13th meeting date was moved based on the holiday. That's it.
Thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.